Hey there. So when I look at trash fires on the internet, none blaze quite as bright as the Mary Sue. I mean, if you really want to go out of your way to see something that disparages people based on race, gender, identity, politics, and on, well, just tune into the Mary Sue because they'll do it. Basically, they'll demonize people because of their politics. They'll unperson them and take away their identity. Point in case, really, this is a good segue. So we have a live stream tonight. 04/19/2018, Thursday at 7 p.m. Central Standard Time. I will be talking with Timothy Lim, artist extraordinaire. Also within that, he is somebody that's been attacked by these people. They decided to make him white, even though he isn't, because they wanted to dismiss him as just another white guy backing Donald Trump. Also, we will be talking with Tim Morris in there, so I think we'll have a pretty good one. No holds barred. Let's talk about all kinds of stuff. Hopefully you can get there, tune in, or get tuned up. Just play. But really, if you could tune in, that'd be great. But with that, it showcases the mindset that you see from a Mary Sue. They go out of their way to make their narrative fit. And when you look at the people that they applaud, like this Christina Harrington here, well, it showcases what type of mentality that they endear themselves to. Christina Harrington, if you don't know them, is one of the three known Milkshake girls. I hate that title too, really, but when you think about the controversy and all the backlash there, if you don't know about that at all, Heather Antos and the Milkshake controversy, essentially you had some people go out, they take a selfie drinking milkshakes, they get around 93 positive comments and 4 negative ones. Those 4, that becomes some maelstrom of, look at these people being harassed. What monsters out there. And the Mary Sue, they were the first to throw that out there. They not only did that, but they threw out the idea that there were death threats and whatnot via email. They didn't produce anything, and it's never been thrown out there. In fact, that portion of the narrative was dropped for a little while, and they've added on to the narrative too. But the Mary Sue was quick to spin 4 negative comments like fake geek girl into a war on women. This person was part of that, and it's interesting because they spun things into a war on women. When you look at some of the comments from Christina Harrington, which we will look at in just a moment, this person is an ardent sexist. I mean, they go out of their way to gatekeep comics. Any other industry would throw someone like this out because they couldn't stand the optics. But within comic books, hey, this is par for the course. I mean, you can hate anybody that you feel like hating there. I mean, you're not going to lose money, right? I mean, it's not going to hurt your sales. Well, Marvel decided to get rid of this person, but when Marvel did, Aftershock Comics, someone that I bought 3 titles from within the last couple of months that I'll probably buy nothing else from, well, they decided to scoop her up. Now, I'll showcase a few of their sales to show you what they indeed do sell, but first, before we do any of that, let's look at this article. We're not going to spend a lot of time on it, but basically what you're looking at is seals clapping on the internet, saying, bravo, this person, they're representative. And when I think about representation, I wonder, what exactly do they represent? I mean, they want to say that they represent women, but this person, they promote that idea, that amalgam comicsgate, wherein you have women in that. You have women, you have people of color, you have people they would call marginalized, but, because of that amalgam, basically they go out, they attack anyone that thinks not like them. They don't think differently. They're probably in the majority when you look at people that don't want to be told what to do. They don't want to be talked to like they're Nazis or alt-right or whatnot. But people like Christina Harrington, they're down with that. And the Mary Sue is definitely down with that. But anyhow, let's look at this here. I've been slowly falling in love with Aftershock Comics, which has proven itself as a formidable force in the indie comics, attracting quality talent and giving some of my favorite female creators the space to create extraordinary creator-owned work that's outside the scope of what they usually do for the big two. Now they've hired Christina Harrington as their new managing editor to further grow the publisher. Harrington comes from Marvel Comics, where she was an editor in the X-Men office for 3 years, working on titles like Astonishing X-Men, Uncanny X-Men, and X-Men Red. Ooh, X-Men Red, such a good title. She has an MFA in fiction from Sarah Lawrence College, and according to an official statement, loves iced coffee and good cheese, and believes there's no such thing as too many comics. Oh, that's awesome. I'm excited to start the next step of my career with Aftershock, Harrington says. Comic books hold a special place in my heart, and to be able to contribute to the history of beloved comic book publishers is a real dream come true, especially since I get to work alongside the rest of this great publishing team at Aftershock. Aftershock co-founder and EIC Mike Martz is equally thrilled to have her join the team. Christina was a brilliant hire for me at Marvel, and she'll no doubt be instrumental to Aftershock's continued success. So right there, when you're buying comic books from Aftershock, remember it's Mike Martz. You know, that idea that kind of slips by me, it kind of slips by who exactly these people are when they throw out a label itself. You know, when I become aware of this, when I become hyper aware of names for all of the wrong reasons, well, that's terrible, because my money, it has this habit of walking away. This stuff right here, this hire itself, putting people like this front and center and pretending that they didn't have some reprehensible things to say, basically hiring that and hiring a block botter, that will stay in place. No doubt it'll stay in place because it was okay there, so I'm sure it'll be okay here. Well, you just lost my money. I mean, just straight up, you lost my money, because none of this stuff will ever be walked back. In fact, her last day of Marvel, she had quite a bit to say on gatekeeping, which we'll also cover. But continuing here, her editorial skills are some of the best I've come across, and we're extremely lucky to have her joining us at Aftershock's managing editor. It's exciting to know that this publisher, which has already given a platform to female creators like, well, you see the female creators here, has hired a woman at its first editorial hire, and will hopefully allow her to bring even more marginalized voices. So being female is being marginalized. Like I said, you look at that there. Continuing into comics, or provide a necessary counterpoint to the majority male voices on the company's creator list. So you've got to point out that divide. You know, that divide right there, you know what it sounds like to me? It sounds like, don't buy my comics. Because when you point at that, if that's your selling point, then I'm sure that the comic books themselves, I'm sure that they don't speak there. Because it sounds like, at least when allowing something like the Mary Sue to hype you, when they agree with you and they find you to be great, I'm sure that your first foot forward probably isn't your merit. And well, when I look at X-Men Red, I would probably agree with that. Congratulations, Miss Harrington. I'm looking forward to seeing how Aftershock will evolve under your guidance. Is it evolution when something crawls under the ground because they lose so many sales that they no longer have a baseline? They basically curve down, hit the floor, and keep going. Is that evolution? I suppose it is. I suppose, you know, the same thing with cave crickets when they evolve to have no eyes and whatnot, or, you know, luminary fish. Yes, I took a visit one time to a cave and saw things like that. Very interesting stuff, but that's beside the point. Anyhow, let's look at some of her wonderful stuff that she's put out over time. So let's check that out. Let's have a little fun. All right, so this is one of my favorites from Christina Harrington, and remember, she was representing Marvel Comics when she decided to put this up. So she put up in one of her posts, also, if you're not a dude, also dudes too, but we see so many of y'all, please submit your portfolio to the Marvel booth at NYCC 2017. Also, if you're not a dude, boldface right there in the front saying, hey, you know, we're probably not going to consider you. That is terrible optics right there when you're talking about an editor. But still, this whole, it will keep on keeping on. All right, so here is yet another one. This is a more lengthy diatribe wherein she tries to flex that vernacular, tries to add in all of the pounding hurt that buzzwords can provide. These things, too, they get annoying. You know, all of your good works, they go out the window because you pressed follow one day. If you were on Twitter, you decided to follow the wrong person. Even if you followed this person, too, doesn't matter. You're a terrible human being. You're not a troll anymore either. Nope, you're all of these other things. And also, did you know you're all male, too? Because we're talking about all males here. I suppose if you're not male, it's some kind of internalized misogyny or some other buzzword there, but it's interesting how any type of criticism becomes something tantamount to sexism, racism, transphobia, and on, and then gets turned into words like cyber violence. I mean, we've seen that because, much like a word marginalized, and this person, you know, we've seen that utilized with them. When you hold that up, that means beyond reproach, and anyone that would dare question these people, they are not only trolls, because trolls, that's not the way we want to go. No, those people there, they're sexist, they're racist, they're violent. They are sexually violent even. When you look at the RP Me Too, you know, when you look at some of the things that they talk about there, apparently that is part of the narrative. It's insane when you get down to this, but I'll let her say it all for you. So I've been thinking about this for a while, long before that milkshake picture turned into what it turned into. What did it turn into as well? When you think about that, I think about it turning into a publicity campaign. That's what I saw. Someone said, you know what would equate to a lot of Twitter likes, and you know what might temporarily boost sales? Well, we're going to go out there and we're going to say that all of these people, they were harangued in such a terrible, terrible manner. We're going to have all of these places, they're going to write articles about it because you know what? They're being harassed because customers, terrible customers, the wrong demographic buys comic books. But anyhow, continuing. Honestly, I've been afraid of harassers flooding my mentions again, and so I've stayed quiet. You notice how many responses this person gets, and you know why? Because they're a Blockbot user. I would encourage you to go, if you're on Twitter and you follow anybody. Now, if you don't follow that many people, you would not be on a Blockbot. These people periodically update, and if you push follow on the wrong people, I can guarantee you that you've been blocked. You've been blocked by someone that wants to say that they're marginalized despite the fact that they work in the biggest of the big two, despite the fact that they've gone out and at their age, they've actually landed a gig there. They want to go out and still say that those terrible people that buy those comic books, well, they're monsters. But let's continue. And here's the thing. I've received like 10% of the harassment that others, especially trans women and women of color, receive on there. Of course, you've got to throw that in there because you are part of that marginalized caste, or you're the defender of the marginalized caste. Again, beyond reproach. But continuing, I've been quiet because I'm afraid. But still, I believe what I'm about to say to the core of myself. We need to stop calling them trolls. Men who attack women on here. Everyone's a man attacking a woman on here. You're not talking about creators anymore. Nope, you're talking about whatever qualifier they add. That way, everything that they do becomes beyond reproach. Make a bad product? No, it's not about the product anymore. It's about the qualifier that the person that made it utilizes, because you're attacking a person themselves. You're no longer critiquing. You're no longer going out of your way to comment about it. Like when I'm talking about someone here, this person in the big two, this editor at the top of the game, no, according to this person, I am attacking a woman right now. It's interesting because it doesn't matter who involves themselves talking to them as well. You're all boiled down to this one thing. You're all given that amalgam gators, and within that, well, of course, you don't amount to anything else. You've been unpersoned in that. We've seen that time and again too. But continuing here, those with and in and outside of comics. So look, you know, basically we have a caveat to attack pros here are serial harassers and abusers and stalkers. I mean, look at the language there. Serial harassers, abusers, stalkers, People that would gatekeep others, they obviously don't want their bad tactics called out, so of course they use vernacular like that. But continuing, when we call these abusers trolls, we lean into the vocab they use for themselves. We take away the seriousness of what they're doing, and we give them more power to continue doing it. Troll implies they're playing a joke. They never meant it. They're part of a larger internet culture that pretends abuse online isn't real. It is real. Calling them what they are: harassers, abusers, sexists, racists, homophobes. It's interesting when I see somebody trying to gatekeep men out of an industry. They're not this, but somebody that would go online and critique a comic book, they are that. Very, very telling about the people that would do that. Very telling about the industry that would allow these words to be applied to individuals buying comics too. Personally, I'm sick of this type of narrative. We've seen this game. We've seen this stuff over and over again, and every time I go back and I look at this stuff, it irritates me. And then knowing that another company picked this person up, well, that irritates me all the more. But continuing, if anyone else more knowledgeable than me has already spoken about this online, please point me to them. I've talked about this already. You know, when we're going there, I'm more knowledgeable than you because, you know, when I get down to it, first of all, I mean, what are we talking about knowledgeable? Are we going out of our way to say you have to be a comic pro to be knowledgeable again? Are we adding some kind of caveat? Do I have to describe myself a specific way? Because if not, you know, if people actually listen to what people like myself, a diversity in comics and on, have actually been putting out there, we're talking about comic consumers being driven away by people like this because they would paint you as stalkers when you talk about something that is endeared to you. And then you see people like this trying to not only pull it away, but when they pull it away from you, they say, can't talk about that. You racist, you sexist, you stalker. Continuing, don't want to step on anyone's toes, but I believe in women supporting women through words and actions, and I can't stay quiet anymore. Make mine Milkshake. You know how many women that you've disparaged by calling them men, by calling them stalkers and whatnot? That's good. And then, of course, one last thing. Comic book guys, we need you to speak out against the harassment in the comics community. Please step up and help us. So let me get this straight. The person that goes out of their way to demonize men as harassers literally goes out and says that men are attacking women, stalker, abuser, serial harasser, and on, throwing that all on there, and also basically demonizing anyone that would come out, talk about the quality of a product, or talk about the professional's performance out there on the social media stage. Well, you know, that person, they also want you to step up and pull your weight because you need to prove what you are. You know, I prove every time that I go into the local comic shop what I am. I'm a comic book consumer. As such, I should be valued. I should not be attacked by someone that wants to call themselves marginalized and yet works at one of the big two. But yet here we are yet again. It's interesting too, because where were these people that say that they stand up for women, supporting women, and so on? Where were they when the real harassment campaigns got rolling? I remember people, the bigger ones everyone knows, like the Van Sciver. We saw that thing roll for a year. Where were these people when they stand up for others? They had nothing to say there. In fact, they were saying quite the opposite. They were saying, pile on, let's make it worse. John Malin, when he had something to say out there, where were these people there to defend him? Of course not, because, you know, we got to pile on, we got to make a man's life worse, because, you know, those awful, awful men. What about Mitch Breitweiser? When you go back and you read about that harassment campaign, or what about the things they tried to do to Elizabeth Breitweiser, looking at her career there? I mean, where were these people standing up for others when there was a harassment campaign to destroy someone's life, when people literally went out of their way to attack individuals because they think differently than you. I think that is the ugliest thing within this. They basically try to weaponize terms. They try to weaponize language. They go out of their way, again, to call people harassers, abusers, sexists, racists, homophobes, and on. But yet, when these type of people, they don't like someone's opinion, they either, best case, they stand on the sidelines and they let something roll. But more often than not, you see these people in there, they're the loudest voices out there, or they're determined to move something along through likes and retweets. They basically guide the mob. And the mob on social media, it's the ugliest thing ever. I mean, really, when you look at what people like myself and yourself, what we've asked for, we want a product worth our money, and we want people to give us a basic standard fair decorum wherein you don't call people names like this. What does that turn you into? That turns you into the worst monster of all. It also turns you into something called a non-consumer because, after a while, people, they don't want to take it anymore. And even if you're addicted to this product, you find other ways to get that fix. But anyhow, let's look at one more. All right, so this final post here, this is from the last day at Marvel. This is another gatekeeping post, in fact, and it talks about dudes. Now, it sets down a narrative to weaponize so sexism it can continue to unfold, but this person essentially says that they're never going to hire you in comics, and neither will any woman working in comics. They will never ever hire you. And you know what? I'm sure when they saw these likes roll in, they gobbled them up like the proverbial pack person, to use that Trudeauian language. They enjoy that way too much. And unfortunately, comics allows these people to continue. They weaponize their sexism. They've thrown this out for public display again and again, and you know what? People continue to hire them. But look here. Here's the cool thing about dudes tweeting horrible shit at me about my last day. I'm going to continue making cool comics, and you'll continue to languish in obscurity. It's very interesting. You think that it's all about making comics. I think that I want to make a comic now just because people like this, they tell me I can't. They try to give me that proverbial middle finger. Well, that's not my industry. But you know what you have lost me as? You lost me as a consumer. I say that over and over again. This person, when they work on a title, I'm not going to pick it up. I'm hyper aware of that. I can skip all of that specific title too. We're talking about titles that sell under the 5,000 mark as well. I can skip them all. I don't need them in my life. I picked up the Rough Riders. I've picked up a few other things as well. We'll look at them in just a second. But I know that I don't need any Aftershock titles. I don't have to have them at all. But continuing this, and I'll continue, love that from an editor there, to not hire you, and so will every woman working in comics. Dudes tweeting horrible shit at me. Again, not there, but you know what? They can weaponize this anytime they want and say you were one of those awful people. I've seen this since the beginning of it. When they were talking about Milkshake girls, when you were talking about the controversy, from day one, when the Blockbot fell, people were out there telling other people that they were going to keep them out of the business. I actually saw on my first day really looking at comments, I saw someone terribly apologizing, saying, hey, I'm sorry that I said something. And what they said was, they said that you shouldn't drop Diversity in Comics' real name out there over and over again because he might sue. That was a bridge too far, apparently, and that will keep you out of comic books. These people over and over again have weaponized this thing here, and that threat should have been answered by a company. Company should have said that this does not speak for us, but instead, they've either been silent, they've been complicit in that, or they've come out and they've endorsed it. They've endorsed this narrative that is allowing them to keep people out of comic books. It's reprehensible, and it's something that is not supportable. Now let's look at numbers from Aftershock Comics. All right, so this is the last thing that I want to look at. These are the titles from Aftershock that were available within Comic-Con. This list was put together by Edwin Boyette. You should check out his channel, and you should also check out his Twitter. You can catch up on a lot of things from certain people, and he has quite a bit to offer. Like I say, YouTube channel and Twitter there, and props to him with this. So when you look at this, you'll notice right away that we're talking about titles that sell under 5,000 issues. People do not need you discouraging individuals to buy things when they sell at this level. And yet that's what these moves do. Really, when I'm looking at this company, I hear one of two things. I hear that they either are ignorant to what's going on or they're complicit within it. And when I think about that, and I think about this person's ties to Marvel and whatnot, they definitely know what kind of person has been thrown into the mix. I have to say myself, baby teeth, I'm dropping. I buy it, I'm dropping it. I do not approve of these type of pickups because this person has gone out of their way to castigate individuals. This person is still a Blockbot user, and this person has told us in no uncertain terms that they're not only sexist, but that they gatekeep. They gatekeep in the name of their sexism, and they weaponize these notions so they work for them. I'm not down with that. I don't think anyone should be. And really, I wonder if this comic company, they even care about that. And if they don't, what about the people that are contracting with them? Because, you know, contractors there, I mean, when we're talking about creator-owned licenses, you're not picking up that much money when you look at these sales anyhow. So, do they need someone out there blatantly harming them? The first of whatever, supposedly marginalized. You know, when there's any kind of blowback for this company, they're going to hold that shield aloft. They're going to say that it's dudes attacking them, and you're going to lose sales yet again. But hey, what do I know? I'm only somebody that spends money on this stuff and finds this reprehensible. So anyhow, let me know what you think about this kind of stuff. I find it crazy that these people, over and over again, they find work within the comic industry. I don't want their jobs. What I do is I want them held accountable for what they do. You know, any other position within any other type of company, these people would not be allowed to flourish. They would be answerable for this. But in comic books, apparently this is the new norm. This is why we see money falling over and over again. And this seems to be the new standard that these smaller companies, some of them want to adopt. Remember the good ones out there. When you see like an Alterna Comics, definitely support them. But, you know, when you see the bad ones, and I'm not going to say these people are bad yet, but when you see bad ones, remember, because you know what? They need your money to thrive. All right, thank you.